In professional wrestling, everybody has their favorite wrestler. It doesn't matter if it's from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, or currently. Somebody in professional wrestling has changed your life forever, and you associate yourselves with them. Well, in 2005, the person that I associated myself with sadly lost their life far too early, and that was the late, great Eddie Guerrero. Now, I could create a video today about how Eddie Guerrero changed my life and all the types of other things that I would love to really talk about, but I doubt I could get through it considering today is the day that Eddie Guerrero passed 19 years ago. So today we're going to celebrate Eddie Guerrero in some of his best lie, cheat, and steal moments. I want to give a shout out to Wrestling Flashbacks, who created this video a couple of years ago, and I'm just going to go over it and review it with you guys. So like always, guys, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and put the bell on for all notifications that are the MrTeshk Wrestling channel. Now, on to the video.
There's nobody ever like him that talked like him and had that personality and that, you know, and you knew when you lost Eddie Guerrero that you lost a one-of-a-kind.
Eddie, starting off the video with Eddie Guerrero really being put over by Bret Hart. I will make the video on my conversation with Eddie Guerrero back in January of 2005. Well, it's made, but it will come out sooner or later. But yes, Eddie Guerrero was exactly that. He was just a special person.
His motto of lie, cheat, steal resulted in some truly epic television that many of us look back on fondly to this day.
Heel tear across the spine. But Eddie Guerrero, look at Eddie Guerrero just pointed the evidence.
How many times have we seen people utilize the chair shot and lay down since Eddie Guerrero's passing? Sasha Banks has used it. CM Punk has used it. I believe John Cena's used it. So many people have utilized the Eddie Guerrero at this point in time. So at least his legacy still lives on.
So for this list, we're counting down the top 10 Eddie Guerrero lying, cheating, and stealing moments. Before we kick off the list, we'll run through some honorable mentions. Eddie's signature way of deceiving the referee was by planting a weapon on his opponent, and Guerrero was up to his old tricks in a match against Matt Hardy on SmackDown in 2003. After the referee grabbed the United States title belt from Hardy, Eddie's nephew Chavo ran to hit Matt with the tag team belt, and this allowed Eddie to get the win.
So this is where we're going to start it off with some of the best moments.
Latino Heat loved to bend the rules any way he could to gain an advantage.
That's
and
true.
This included moving the tag rope during a match where he teamed with Booker T to face the Bashams in 2005. Even though the referee caught him, you have to love Eddie for his creativity.
I've never seen that.
This is the one part about Eddie Guerrero that is so cool, is that he turns around and, like, it was the facial expressions. It was the things that he would do subtly that is the best part about him. Like, he's clearly showing Nick Patrick here that he is moving the rope.
Wrestling Mr. Kennedy on SmackDown, Eddie smacked a chair off the mat and then threw it to Kennedy, while Guerrero pretended as if he had just been hit. So when the referee got back to his feet, he assessed the situation and disqualified Kennedy.
Yeah, he
giving
did.
Eddie the win. Number 10, stealing Kurt Angle's possessions and auctioning them off. Eddie's feud with Kurt Angle took SmackDown by storm in 2004.
Where he sold the gold medals.
Was injured, Guerrero still found ways to...
I've never understood how they get a guy in a wheelchair in the ring.
to torment the Olympic gold medalist. But with Kurt set to return to action by facing Eddie at SummerSlam, Latino Heat had one more trick up his sleeve to get under Angle's skin. After Kurt had been fired as SmackDown general manager, Guerrero managed to get a hold of the items Angle decorated his office with. Eddie hatched a plan to auction off each one of Kurt's possessions for charity. Kurt eventually interrupted and looked to get revenge by stealing Guerrero's lowrider. Unfortunately for Angle, Eddie had booby-trapped the car, which left Kurt humiliated. Guerrero then got Angle's music to play, as Eddie and the fans then sang along with "You Suck" chants directed at Angle.
You don't get segments like that. You don't get segments like that anymore.
The value of Angle's possessions. They each signed Angle's old leg cast, while Eddie offered to add hydraulics to Kurt's wheelchair. Eddie then mentioned that he, just like Angle, also competed in the Olympic Games. Eddie then shows us a hilarious promotional video hyping SummerSlam in which Eddie cheats to win the 100-meter sprint.
Yeah, he did. Yes. It was for a good cause.
Number 9,
it was for a good cause.
Backfires. Next, we'll look at a match where Eddie's attempt to cheat backfired. This happened when he teamed with Booker T to challenge Rey Mysterio and Rob Van Dam for the WWE Tag Team titles on the last SmackDown in 2004. After the referee got inadvertently taken out,
good
a
old
familiar
Nick
smile
Patrick
came
bump
over Eddie's face, which is usually a precursor to him bringing a weapon into the ring. However, this time, Eddie wrestled with his conscience a bit before grabbing the tag
My
belt
favorite
and placing
part
it onto the chest of Rey Mysterio, so that when Nick Patrick got up, it looked as though Rey had hit Eddie with the gold. Eddie tried his luck once too often though, as Patrick turned around when Eddie was taunting Mysterio. Latino Heat then tried to convince the ref he'd been hit, even getting Patrick to raise his hand, but as he did this, Rey interrupted and was eventually able to pin Guerrero, allowing Mysterio and RVD to retain the tag titles.
My favorite part about anything Eddie Guerrero does or did, it's when he puts that smile on his face and you just know something is about to happen, and he's playing it through his head knowing the crowd reaction. That was the greatest part, because you knew something special was coming.
After the match, Eddie hilariously explained to Booker T what had happened, while Mysterio laughed, having got one over on Latino Heat. Number 8, Poison's Big Show's burrito. By the fall of 2003, Eddie held both the United States and tag team titles, as his popularity was soaring. It was during this time that Eddie also had some run-ins with the Big Show, who had his eyes on the US Championship. After Show attacked the Guerreros backstage, Eddie planned to get his revenge. First, we would see a Mexican gentleman attempt to deliver some burritos.
They can't do that anymore. It's too politically correct these days. You can't have a big Latino guy come in with a Mexican hat that says Mexico spray painted on it.
To Eddie. However, the Big Show took a few for himself, leaving just one for Eddie that Show covered in some special sauce. Show then wrestled Orlando Jordan. However, it was clear that something was wrong with the world's largest athlete. Show was in so much trouble he had to walk out on the match to get to the nearest toilet. This meant Big Show lost via countout, but this would be the least of the Giants' worries. With Show struggling inside a bathroom stall, Eddie revealed his master plan. Latino Heat had covered the burritos with a secret sauce of his own. Both men played their roles to perfection here, with Big Show especially delivering some priceless facial expressions. And as if it couldn't get any worse for the Big Show, the next week he'd still be full of crap, but it was going to take more than toilet paper to clean up this mess. Number 7,
I totally
Eddie
forgot
steals
about
the Great
that.
American Award. With Kurt Angle out injured and having taken up the role of SmackDown General Manager, he was asked with deciding the number 1 contender for Eddie Guerrero's WWE
Chain Gang
Championship.
Cena.
This was to be decided via fan voting on WWE.com, where the winner would also receive the Great American Award. But despite John Cena's landslide victory, the number 1 contendership and award was given to JBL. Angle then revealed the trophy. However, it was clear that it had been stolen by Eddie. Guerrero then drove down to the ring using the award as a hood ornament. Eddie threatened to destroy the trophy as well as JBL's limo, while Angle demanded the trophy be given back.
Look at JBL
Guerrero
cracking.
did eventually break part of the trophy by snapping off one of the Eagle's wings.
I would be extremely. Oh, what the?
Eddie then proceeded to attack JBL with the trophy as Bradshaw and Angle fled the ring. From there, Guerrero destroyed the award with the steel chair.
Good job.
Angle was on fire
Good
during
job,
the
Eddie.
segment as he and JBL sold their anger over Eddie stealing and breaking the trophy tremendously. As for Eddie, well, he was his usual comedic self here. Overall, this was a great way to continue his feud with Kurt Angle while also kickstarting the WWE Champions feud with JBL.
And that's one of those ones where Eddie was able to build any feud out of virtually nothing. Even though they had great chemistry, JBL and Eddie Guerrero, it was one of those ones where you sit there and you're like, man, like this is just so much better. So, you know what? And JBL being that newer character as well, that big billionaire character going from Bradshaw to JBL, like I know he was established at this point, but I think Eddie Guerrero, even though he was going into the feud to feud with JBL, he actually put JBL over even more.
Number 6, stealing Ric Flair's number.
Best
Next,
segment.
we have an all-time great Royal Rumble moment that took place at the 2005 event. Eddie and Ric Flair
This
were
was
next
my
out to
favorite.
draw their numbers for
This
the
might
Rumble
be my
match.
favorite Eddie
Flair
Guerrero
went first
moment.
and was overjoyed after finding out the number he drew. Guerrero, on the other hand, wasn't so pleased. Then proudly showed off his number to the divas and general managers. They looked on in confusion, and Nate would soon find out why when he looked at his number again and came to an unfortunate realization.
Eric Bischoff looks so miserable.
Guerrero stole my number.
Later on in the show, SmackDown GM Teddy Long demanded that Eddie return the stolen number to Flair. Eddie eventually gave it back, but there was still another surprise in store for the Nature Boy.
My wallet, look at that.
Once the Royal Rumble match began, we would soon learn why Guerrero had switched out his number for Flair's.
Eddie
Since
Guerrero
entered
at
the
number
match
1.
first, while Rick was the final entrant in the coveted number 30 spot. Number 5, Eddie caught red-handed by the referee. We've got another example of Eddie being caught in
Eddie Guerrero was good at his tactics, but he did get caught a lot.
the act of cheating, and it once again involves Rey Mysterio. This time it
Always.
was he and Eddie that were the tag team champions, but that didn't stop the two from wrestling each other on SmackDown in early 2005. Sometime into the match, the referee accidentally ended up on the receiving
Has
end
to
of
have a ref
seated
bump.
senton
There
right
has
leg.
to be a
The
ref
smirk
bump
on
in an
Eddie's
Eddie
face
Guerrero
could
match.
only mean one thing. Guerrero set out to stage the scene again, just like before, but this time he was extra careful. However, Rey managed to turn the tables by throwing the belt to Eddie while the ref, Brian Hebner, got back up.
Good old Brian Hebner. Nope. What are you doing, Eddie? What are you
Guerrero
doing,
then had
Eddie?
to hide the belt under his body as Hebner attempted to figure out what had happened. And just when Eddie tried to dispose of the title, Hebner caught him in the act as Rey laughed on in the background. Hebner saw this and then confronted Rey, threatening to disqualify both men. As Guerrero complained, he had unknowingly positioned himself for the 619, but he was able to dodge it, responding with a small package that Mysterio was able to counter into a pin of his own, and this ultimately earned Rey the win.
This is why
Afterwards,
these
Rey
two were
forcibly
so
shook
good
Eddie's
together.
hand after Guerrero had refused to show any sportsmanship. They eventually hugged, although it was clear Eddie was upset that Mysterio had now gotten the better of him twice. This played into Eddie's eventual heel turn on Rey that occurred a few months later. Number 4, stealing JBL's limo. Even though Eddie had his lowrider, that didn't stop him
and
from
that one
having
you
fun
go
with
to,
other
and that
people's
one you
cars.
talk about
JBL experienced
where, sorry, I don't mean to cut that off. And that's where you go to like the Dominic Mysterio turn, the Batista turn. Everything is significant on Rey Mysterio. Is everything significant back to the Eddie Guerrero turn because of how they did it? The lariat holding his arm. Everything focuses back to that Eddie Guerrero turn. Dominic played into that well, and I think that's why they've been able to build this Dominic character into like the greasy, like Timu version of Dominic of Eddie Guerrero.
this more than once, including the time Eddie stole Bradshaw's limo on SmackDown in 2004.
Whoa! We are going for a ride. And it's gonna be better than Disneyland!
When Guerrero returned to the arena with the limo, it was clear he'd been out on one hell of a joyride. Once JBL regained consciousness, he crawled out of the backseat, and it was only then
Why is
that
he covered in
realized just
mustard?
how much damage Eddie had caused. This drove Bradshaw to tears while Guerrero looked on, grinning from ear to ear to close out an incredibly funny segment.
It looks like you got a hangover, ese! Orale, viva mi raza!
Number 3, Eddie's whipful thinking.
Okay, I did say that the one segment was my favorite. This is probably one of my favorite segments because this is around when he was feuding with the Bashams, and this is actually kind of around
On
the
the
time I met
November
him.
6, 2003 episode of SmackDown,
2003?
the deck was stacked
Okay, it was
against Eddie.
2005,
He went up
never
against
mind.
the Basham brothers in a 2-on-1
My mistake.
handicap match. The Bashams also had Shaniqua in their corner, who was armed with a
Shaniqua.
whip. Eddie attempted a frog splash, but as he did this, Shaniqua got on the apron and distracted the referee, Nick
Anybody
Patrick.
remember
While
Shaniqua?
the Basham switched places in the ring, Guerrero poked Shaniqua in the eye and managed to get a hold
Eddie.
of the whip, which Eddie then used on both Danny Basham and Nick Patrick before planting the whip on Basham just as Nick turned around.
He got the ref too.
And with Basham distracted, this allowed Eddie to swoop in with a schoolboy and pick up the victory.
Good
It
old-
was a classic moment with Eddie winning
So
the only way
good.
he knew how. Number
God,
2,
he was special.
WWE title victory.
Yes.
Eddie walked into the 2004
Yes.
No Way Out event wrestling the biggest match of his career, challenging Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship. Despite being the heavy underdog on paper, Guerrero was the overwhelming favorite in the
Yeah,
eyes
he
of the
was.
crowd. He was
That was
without
in
question
California, I
one of the
believe.
most popular wrestlers in the company going into the pay-per-view. With the referee down, Lesnar's rival Goldberg looked set
Just
to hand
did
Eddie
not
the
like they did not need Goldberg for this match. I understand what they did it for, but they did not need Goldberg. Eddie should have just won this clean.
win by hitting a spear on the champion, but this could only muster up a 2 count from the official, and with the ref still barely conscious, Guerrero attempted to use the WWE title belt to nail Brock, only for the champ to duck and kick Eddie in the gut before hoisting him up for the F5. But Latino Heat responded
Counter
with a
into the
miraculous
DDT.
counter, DDTing Lesnar onto the gold, and with the capacity crowd on their feet,
Insane.
Eddie delivered a frog splash.
You don't get
The
reactions like
referee
this
called over
anymore.
to count the 3, making Eddie Guerrero the new WWE champion. The celebrations were spectacular.
Oh,
as
yeah.
Eddie jumped into the crowd, celebrating with the very people who had helped make all this happen through their unwavering support.
Eddie cheated with that move.
It's a different kind of high tonight!
Number 1, WrestleMania moment. Eddie continued to treat fans to some fantastic television whilst WWE champion, but it couldn't have been a tougher first big title defense than against Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 20. Angle dissected Guerrero's ankle to the point where Eddie looked to untie his boot.
Had to untie the boot to get the ankle lock.
Kurt went straight back to the ankle lock, but because he had hold of Guerrero's boot, the champion was able to loosen his foot out even more, allowing Eddie to escape the hold, leaving Angle with Eddie's boot in his hand as Guerrero used a small package to score
and the ropes
with both his feet on the ropes for leverage.
Foot came off. Look at this. Small package. 1, 2, 3.
Kurt's shoulders were definitely not down for that, but we'll take it.
An ingenious way to win a match. And with such high stakes up for grabs on the grandest stage of them all, victory couldn't have tasted any sweeter. Although lying, cheating, and stealing in real life might not be the best idea, in the world of wrestling, it can breed creativity.
I couldn't have said it better than myself.
Moments. And if you're as good as Eddie Guerrero, create one of the most beloved wrestlers of all time. And that brings us to the end of this video.
Guys, I know this is not the type of reaction video that I tend to do, but this was probably the best quality video that I could find. So big shout out to Flashback Wrestling on YouTube. The description to their channel will be down below. But I just want to say thank you for watching this video, supporting my channel, and supporting Eddie Guerrero, because he meant the absolute world to me. And I think a lot of people should be able to go back and watch his entire portfolio of his work and just see how special of a character and a man Eddie Guerrero was. So I'm just going to end the video with a slight little tribute. So thank you so much. Leave a comment on your favorite Eddie Guerrero moment.